You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC out of Indianapolis. It's great to be with you this evening, whether you're joining us on the radio network, the TV, the live streams on X and YouTube, because we're going to start off with a little come to Jesus moment. Right here, you and me. Here, just a little bit of a second here. I'm going to be real frank with you. Sunny Hostin, on The View, renowned for her years of wisdom, grace, and perspective. She said something so bold, stunning, brave, courageous, as it were, today. We had to stop right at the beginning of the show and talk to you about it. So please, Sunny, take it away.
I bet you there are a lot of people that voted for Trump that wish the Kamala Harris
a lot of
was in the
people
White
who
House.
didn't vote.
I bet there are a lot of people who voted for Trump that wish Kamala Harris was president. Right, come here. I'll tell you a secret. No. There are not any, if there are any Trump voters out there who voted for Trump, who may not be a fan of some aspects of his policy, which by the way happens. Trump is not completely ideologically aligned with some of his voters. Some things people did like that Trump had that Kamala Harris didn't bring to the table. If there are any regrets at all about voting for Trump in this election, I guarantee you that that particular regret is in the primary or who they may have wanted on this side of the ticket, not the choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. If you truly, honestly, in your heart of hearts believe, deep down, that there are individuals in this country who voted for Donald Trump after watching Kamala Harris, who we'll get to in a little bit, later, in her Jerry Seinfeld pirate shirt, then you need to take a minute and just go talk to the Lord, get it right, and then come back and join us. Because, guys, I don't think that of all of the choices voters have, that the Kamala Harris want from the Trump voter is where it's at. So just had to get that out of the way, because the left is currently really trying to find some kind of footing. They are now finally, just after ages wandering around in the wilderness, bumping into each other, stepping on Legos in the dark, they recognize that, maybe we have a moment. Maybe there's a little bit of chaos. After all, when the Republicans are arguing with each other, which, happens on most days ending in Y, there's a little bit of an opportunity. What are these Republicans arguing about? Economics? Oh, never heard of it. Sounds exciting. So the Democrats got to get out there and put a little response up there, And so what did they do? Well, they brought out this guy from the House Democrats. He's Representative Chris Deluzio. Now you say, Tony, I've never heard of him before. Yeah, me neither. In fact, nobody in this country has ever. I'm pretty sure that the people in the House district in Pennsylvania have no idea who Chris Deluzio is. But they trotted him out as the big response against the Trump tariffs. And it didn't quite go as they expected.
Chris Deluzio here from Western Pennsylvania, proud son of the Rust Belt. And I think a wrong for decades consensus in Washington on free trade's been a race to the bottom. It's hollowed out our industrial power, cost us good jobs. The president's tariff announcement, though, and his trade strategy has been chaotic. It's been inconsistent. We should not treat our economic allies, like Canada, the same as trade cheats like communist China.
Okay, so just a real quick stop here. A few great points to bring out here from the political perspective, because we do have a couple of politicos who watch the show, a couple of staffers in both state capitals and in the Beltway of D.C. itself. Cool tip. And also for producer Nick over here, a little bit. Remember yesterday when I was telling you that when you are cutting clips, right after the person is done cutting, you let them finish their thought, and then you cut back to the next phrase right as the next word starts. That's how you do a jump cut. Whoever did this video for the House Democrats did the opposite. So incompetence on full display. Federal, your tax dollars hard at work, folks. His criticisms of the Trump tariffs are not that he doesn't like tariffs, are not that he doesn't think trade protectionism is a good thing, but that they have been chaotic and that they have been mean and hurtful and harmful and just really not, big smiley face out of the 60s towards are allies. So the idea is that because the EU is being hit with tariffs at the same time that China is being hit with tariffs is really frustrating to him. And that's his whole message. Now, this guy looks kind of like Gavin Newsom, but like the great value version. And we'll leave him alone. I've never heard of him. He's a nice guy, probably. I don't know. There's a bit of a problem with this response. Guys, the Trump tariff policies are Bill Clinton from 97. That's it. That's all they are. They are the exact economic line, verbatim, from Bill Clinton in 97. Back when Bill Clinton, after he was done stuffing his intern, used to go down to the house and arm wrestle Newt Gingrich, this is the stuff he would say. And then he would talk about all the ladies he was hitting on with Hillary. Excuse me. So the left really has nowhere to go here. They have nowhere to go. Because for the last 15 years, trade protectionism has been their exact mantra. Because it's what unions like the UAW demanded. They said that it was because we didn't have enough tariffs that the Japanese auto market took over in the second half of the 20th century, which is not true. But please, don't let me make this argument for you. Here's Bernie Sanders in 2008 making that exact case.
Further, what they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street. People who are making 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, health care, pensions, throw them out on the street because somehow, Madam President, we are going to create wealth in America and good paying jobs in America as we shut down plants, we move to China, corporations there.
Now that is the straight socialist line, that if we don't have tariffs, then corporations are going to take advantage of their workers, which is first of all, oversimplification. I know, shocker, class warfare, day ending in Y. But that's the Bernie Sanders argument. That's basically, though, what Trump is accusing foreign nations and corporations moving to those foreign nations of doing. So the Democrats can't bring out their moderates, and actually have them gain any headway. You can't have Democrats come out and say things that, yeah, sure, Barack Obama was saying this kind of thing in, 2018. Here's Barack Obama.
When it comes to the international system of commerce and trade, it's legitimate for poorer countries to continue to seek access to wealthier markets. And by the way, wealthier markets, that's not the big problem that you're having. A small African country is sending you tea and flowers. That's not your biggest economic challenge.
So he's pointing out that it's totally fine for, other countries to tariff us because, after all, it's important for countries to want a firm foothold in the economic fairness initiative, which is questionable in how it's framed by those making that argument. However, this is where it gets fun because the left has nowhere to go on social issues at all. Americans don't like illegal immigration. Americans don't like the LGBTQ plus 2IA goofy nonsense. They don't like the hyperclimate change, you're going to own nothing and be happy narrative from the left. So then when Trump comes out and gives a really moderate Democrat economic policy, which it is, as a long-term policy, we're going to talk about that here in just a bit and how tariffs are going and what the underlying strategy is and the good and the bad and the ugly. We'll get to that. But as far as the Democrat response, right now, they don't have anyone they can trot out. They are cycling through anyone they can find because the front runners right now for the Democrats are terrifying. They are terrifying. And we're going to talk about some of those terrifying candidates in a second. Radio crew, we got to send you over to that wide, beautiful, wonderful commercial land. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, crew, over on the live stream. Remember Elissa Slotkin? You say, I have no idea who that is. Yeah, well, she's a senator from Michigan. Oh, you have no idea who that? Oh, okay. Imagine Pete Buttigieg, but like actually a wife. Sorry, Pete Buttigieg is that another topic for another time, boys and girls. Elisa Slotkin is kind of like the really annoying mom that shows up at the park with her kids, and like, you talk to other parents at the park because that's something nice that you do. You talk to the parents, and she starts telling you about how like every Republican is really bad and mean and stinky, and how they don't understand like the Sex in the City that she watched for 4 hours that morning. That's Elisa Slotkin. They trotted her out after Trump's State of the Union style address and had her address the nation. The Democrats thought, yes, here we go. This is our champion. This is who will take us to defeat the Republicans. This is a moderate voice, and no one cared. Because the Democrats gave all of this power to radical fringes of the party. They screwed over the union voters, like in Michigan. That's why they chose Elisa Slotkin in Michigan. That's now why they're throwing it to Representative no one knows from Pennsylvania. Son of the Rust Belt. I'm tired of being one of so many of the sons of the Rust Belt. This morning, I feel like I should get a membership card. Every Politico who is from the Midwest decided in the last year and a half it's trendy to say that you're from the Rust Belt. I remember being from the Rust Belt when no one cared, and our parents' jobs were all going to Mexico and China, and it kind of stunk around here because our small towns were awful. And now it's like really hip and trendy to be from the Midwest. Again, another topic for another time. In short, the Democrats have no one. They got nothing. Because if you bring out Democrats to say, well, we like what Trump said, we just don't like how he said it. Okay, great. That's every mediocre marriage on earth. Way to go. Well done. And it's amazing because, and this really is astounding, this is the lowest bar for a PR victory one could have. All you needed is someone in the Democrat side of the aisle to say, okay, well, we just have some more free trade tendencies here that would boost the market and some strong social programs with it. There are no Democrats like that. Because in order to be a part of the Democratic Party, it is required that you are hyper-protectionist on the economy. The Democrats have no free trade members of the party. None. All the libertarians, they're on the right side of the aisle. I know that libertarians like to pretend that they're part of some magical third party that's separate from Republicans and Democrats. That's dumb. That's retarded. That's not true. Libertarians are Republicans who don't have social conservative values. They are economically on the right. They just are. Oh, no, I'm actually a third party. I think both sides are bad. If you genuinely stacked up the things that you didn't like from both sides of the political spectrum, the things on the left side of the political spectrum to a libertarian are, the death, the Maoism, the communism, the statism, and the stuff that's caused all of the death over the last century. And then on the right side of the aisle is a bunch of, moral church-going goobers who want to tell you how to live your life. I'm looking at both of them, and so as far as the libertarians are concerned, the Democrats could theoretically run. There's nobody at all. Is a massive, massive problem for the party leadership. And they have been so disjointed, so bouncing around on all kinds of various nonsenses, on social issues, on illegal immigration issues, on like weird simping after other nations more than the United States and calling America First style policies inherently white supremacist, that now the radicals that they gave the opposition microphone to back then are running the party. And there's no one to contest them. No name senator from Michigan. Some guy who looks like a younger Gavin Newsom from Pennsylvania. There's nothing left. And so what we have later on in the show is a bit more on the news side of things. And then, of course, the lineup for the left. Stick around. We're going to grab the radio folks back from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. The 2028 lineup is wild for a few reasons, but it is no more wild than for the lineup that has, I wouldn't say has risen to the top like cream. You have a contested party, for example, right now in the Republican Party, or the last couple of times that we have done a big Republican presidential primary, everyone throws their hat into the ring, and you start to see what a diverse group ideologically Republicans have become over the last decade and a half. Some for good, some for ill. some really smart and intelligent people, and some who confuse Roger Stone for others in particular House hearings. But enough about Lauren Boebert. So my concern when I look at the left side of the aisle, I'm just kidding. It's not a concern. What gives me endless joy is watching truly no new stars, no rising political charismatic talents that are going to sweep the stage. What I'm seeing are the loudest radical voices after a defeat by the electorate against radical voices in specific now take the reins and start to sweep away who were kind of the breadwinners for the Democratic Party. Case in point, Kamala Harris and AOC. So Kamala Harris has finally crawled out of the wine cabinet and has made it to the stage of America yet again, where she decided to announce that she is super duper brave and courageous. And she's brave and courageous because she is courageously afraid. I'm not joking. Those were her words. And then she, of course, did her signature move.
And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
So she then goes on to tell everyone that it takes courage to admit that you're afraid. By the way, that Disney line where it takes courage and bravery to admit how afraid you are, where in the world is the source on that? I've always been a bit confused. It takes courage to admit that you're afraid of everything. No, I'm afraid not. Courage the Cowardly Dog was an oxymoron, and they made a cartoon about it. That's not actually how any of that works, but it is good to hear the idiosyncrasies of Kamala's speech pattern come back to remind us that we could have had Kamala. And again, the Jerry Seinfeld pirate shirt, the puffy neck collar where it looks like she's getting ready to ask a parrot if it is interested in crackers is particularly special. Now there's the real front runner for 2028. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now the right is very familiar with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because there's been even money over the last decade that if someone said something particularly stupid from a socialist perspective in politics, it was AOC. This is the lady who didn't know how many branches of government there were. This is the brave, courageous, because she's afraid, individual who cried in parking lots. I mean, this is the champion. Well, now she is just openly trying to outmaneuver Chuck Schumer. She's received all of these calls. She and a lot of other progressives are mad that Schumer didn't let Republicans get the continuing resolution through, because I guess Schumer could have sort of stopped it, and then the Democrats would have had a shutdown, and then Trump would have had an actual constitutional reason to declare a national emergency. But in this particular case, the progressives were really mad at Chuck Schumer because they thought he bent the knee to Trump, and then Trump was happy. And now, according to a new poll from Data for Progress, first shared with Politico, found that 55% of Democratic likely voters now support or lean towards supporting AOC, while only 36% back or lean towards Senator Schumer. 9% were undecided. That is wild. And she's all about it too. Here's AOC with Jon Stewart just openly going after the Democrat establishment in the party and no bones about it.
There need to be Democrats who walk the walk and talk the talk. There is an insane amount of hypocrisy, and the hypocrisy is what gets exploited to use the cynicism. And wherever there's a hypocritical window, for example, I think one of the most biggest examples of this is insider trading in Congress.
Dude, I don't know if do I give snaps? I don't know what the kids do anymore.
Now, wait a minute here. I was told that when Elon Musk started investigating the kind of gains people have made financially when they got into Congress that that's fascism and stealing data. And when the Republicans suggest that people like Nancy Pelosi or Elizabeth Warren are engaging in insider trading and that you can basically track NVIDIA and Pelosi at the hip and they kind of go up and down in their stock portfolios at the same time, you know, that was a conspiracy theory. But now here you have AOC openly admitting it. She's clearly going after the corporatists in both parties. By the way, corporatist means someone who favors corporate policy and both subsidies and the lobbyists who go for the subsidies, right? The special tax lines that give certain corporations special permissions that are outside of things that individuals would be granted in the United States, right? So those are corporatists. There are corporatists in both parties. And corporatists, shocker, they know ahead of time what laws that lobbyists suggest, little lines of certain bills, are going to benefit certain corporations. And you know that is just real useful when it comes to picking stocks. And AOC calls this out because she's going after Schumer. Now, the funny thing is, she's still wildly, I mean, again, that's a classic socialist tactic. I mean, that's the same Marxist playbook for every single person on the far left in history. Oh, the rich are screwing everyone over. Classic line there. Then you have the more violent side of Marxism, which is the domestic terror. The incidents of, burning down buildings or vehicles in order to intimidate those in a patterned, targeted approach of political violence. And she refuses at all to condemn the clear, objectively domestic terror incidents regarding Teslas and dealerships.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Hi, nice to see you. I want to ask you real quick, do you see a connection at all between the rhetoric we're hearing from Democrats on Musk and Tesla, connection to the violence at all, what's happening on the streets, to Tesla dealerships?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I've seen Republicans call me communist and I hate this country. I mean, it's, I don't know.
Congressman, did you sell your Tesla yet?
Pretend she can't hear him. Has to wait at the elevator.
Congresswoman, do you still have your Tesla? I was just wondering if you still have your Tesla.
For security reasons, I'm not commenting.
For security reasons. Ah, yes. Okay. Let's think this through. She does still have her Tesla. So again, the blatant hypocrisy, and yet again, the condoning when you say, the political targeting and the rhetoric talking about Musk being the ultimate super fascist threat. So that everyone, again, on the radical left goes out and starts firebombing Teslas and dealerships. Yeah, that's a problem. The funny thing is, and I couldn't help but share this today. I got a chance to share a segment over on Newsmax with Theron Bond, who's a Democrat strategist. And she's trying to do what a lot of Democrats are, recognizing the winds are changing. AOC is going to be the next titular lead of the party. And they're saying now they're going to try to rewrite history. Oh, she's moderating. She's calmed way down. And that's such a blatant lie. But you still need to hear it. The history revision is happening in real time. Check it out.
Leader Schumer and what he did with the CR vote, there were a lot of Democrats that were unhappy. There were a lot of could-be Democrats that were unhappy. So I'm not surprised to see more people rally around AOZ. She used to be a really big firebrand, and she's toned it down and hyper-focused it much better than she did initially, or at least that was the perception. But people want bold, fearless leaders, and that's what AOC represents right now, and certainly it's much more than Leader Schumer.
By the way, just a little pro tip for those out there doing political analysis or doing commentary on TV. Don't make it obvious that you're reading off a teleprompter when you're on the air. Pro tip, just don't stutter your words as though you are reading your response, because you need to make sure that you revise the history correctly. We'll send the radio folks to commercial and be back in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Up next on the brilliant, beautiful, bold, breathtaking lineup for the Democrats, the leaders of the party right now. Of course, we have the congressional crackhead, the racist from Dallas, old Jasmine Crockett herself. And she is, every day, there's a new set of clips from Jasmine that give me hope in, even though Jerry Springer is no longer with us, his spirit lingers through. And Jasmine's just clear evidence of this, that we will forever see acts of really stupid people ranting about nonsense. Here's Jasmine Crockett trying to be really holier than thou about the trans children in sports thing. Again, 80-20 issue. Americans do not like boys playing in girls' sports. Here's Jasmine going, oh, that's just so dumb. Yeah, that girl with the brain injury, who cares?
According to them, the trans kids that want to play the sports, Lord have mercy, that is the biggest issue that we had. Since when? Since when? Find the little trans child that is ruining your life. Like, I mean, I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
I don't know if you noticed this, but like, remember how Kamala went through different accents that she would do during her campaign? And so we've looked at Jasmine Crockett now, and when she started, she just spoke as regular people speak. And then she did kind of the inner city kind of Chicago accent that she had, like the Chicago in the inside there. Now she's doing what only sounds kind of like an old grandpa from Georgia. She's got like old grandpa from Georgia. I want to play a little bit of that again, just for me.
According to them, the trans kids that want to play the sports.
The trans kids, they want to play the sports. She's never talked like that in her life. It's so fake and it's so nonsense. I love it. Please, more Jasmine Crockett. By the way, a great post from her today. The fact that everything around us is burning to the ground. Burning to the ground. Who is doing the burning? Jasmine is burning to the ground, and some people still have no clue that they voted for the arsonist or are complicit in the arson. Is absolutely mind-boggling, which is incredible. I wasn't aware Crockett had a mind to boggle. People are okay with it so long as the black woman isn't their president. America, we have a serious problem. That shows you what you think of Kamala, right? The issue is not that Americans didn't agree with Kamala, and they should have, because they think Kamala, because they could say Kamala was, because they could say that Kamala was friendly. Okay, in an imaginary world, you could say, oh, well, this is the leader, this Kamala is as smart, as funny, as articulate, as wise, or whatever, about a political leader that you like. She didn't say that, though. She says, the black woman, because to her, that was all that was ever valuable about Kamala Harris. That was all that was ever valuable, Kamala Harris. That's it. And then, of course, we have Cory Booker, who's being hailed as a champion because he spoke for 24 hours and didn't poop on the Senate floor. No, really, like him not defecating on the Senate floor is being considered an achievement. So a little bit of Cory Booker for kicks and giggles.
American people are sick and tired of being afraid to speak their minds lest they be politically smeared as communists or fascists by their opponents.
Huh, what's that like? Americans don't want to be smeared? I wonder who was doing that over the last couple of years. Freedom
of speech, she says, is not what it used to be in America. It has been so abused by some that it is not exercised by others. So, dear God, if I stand up...
Oh, dear God. Oh, by appeal to the heavens. Great. They're doing fine, folks. We'll be back in just a second to talk about some of the breaking news. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, on to a little bit of quick news here before we start talking about the tariffs and their effect, because that's a little bit of part of the news here. There is a full-on judicial jamboree going on in this country at the moment. So the Supreme Court has just sided with President Trump 5-4 to allow him to continue halting teacher grants that were being used for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So a lower court judge had ordered that the Trump administration immediately reinstate $250 million in Department of Ed grants to about 8 or 9 states. This is your first inkling that it is going to be a very, very rough summer for the left in SCOTUS. Because the federal judge in this district court is like, well, you have to go through and do this, that, and the other. You have to give this money to political programs. You have to spend it on racial discrimination. And the Trump administration said no. And this is, again, notably here, the one textualist judge that joined the 3 liberals is Chief Justice John Roberts. So, again, there is still a 5-4 majority in the Supreme Court. Also, in another major opinion. In a 2-1 opinion, the North Carolina Court of Appeals sides with Griffin, ordering the North Carolina State Board of Elections to recount the votes in the Seat 6 Supreme Court election for North Carolina. Now, in North Carolina, Allison Riggs, the Democrat incumbent, received 50% of the vote. 2,769,682. Jefferson Griffin, the Republican, received 50% of the vote. 2,769,612. A difference of 70 votes, which is well within recount territory. But here's the catch. Not only are these votes to, in fact, be recounted, but 65,000 of these votes will have to prove that their vote was legitimate. In other words, these votes have to be proved as coming from legitimate individuals who are citizens of the state of North Carolina, who voted legally according to state standards. Now, just going to say that normally, when you look at these kind of voting situations, it just so happens that a lot of those votes, especially coming from city areas, well, usually are a bit bluer than they are red. So usually when you see Republican votes that aren't tallied, it's because a very, sweet old lady didn't fill out the ballot information on like a mail-in ballot correctly. And then you have individuals that are, being voted for in blue areas that are being told according to voting trackers, oh, hey, you voted. It's like, I haven't voted. What are you talking about? Oh, well, you cast a straight blue ticket. Congratulations. So that'll be definitely one to watch. Also, Judge Paula Zinnes has ordered the Trump administration to return the suspected MS-13 member from the El Salvadorian jail that the Trump administration deported early. And I do find it really funny because Judge Paula Zinnes can't order Trump to do that, first of all. Number two, she can't order the president of El Salvador to do anything either. So, good for her. That's real special. The Trump administration also, the TikTok deal that Vance reportedly had right on the finish line to get ByteDance to sell TikTok, the Beijing-owned company, to sell TikTok to an American group. That deal has now fallen through, of course, because of the tariffs. President Trump said that because of this, he is issuing an executive order to keep TikTok up and running in the United States for an additional 75 days. That's a problem. You can't have Congress pass laws and then the president sign bills into law and then just say, well, I'm deciding that I'm not going to enforce that. That was a big issue during the Biden administration, right? This idea that the executive branch has prosecutorial discretion. And so then, because you get to decide how you're going to enforce the law, you can just choose not to enforce certain laws on the books. No, you have to enforce the laws that are on the books. And so extending the TikTok saga on and on and on when it has been banned by the elected Congress of the United States and signed into law by the president, whether or not you, A, like the president that was in power, don't at the time, and then congressionally, whether or not you agree or don't agree with the bill being passed, it is the law, and it's not an unconstitutional law that was passed. So just signing executive orders into the ether to extend that forever, that's not allowed. And that hurts Trump when he doesn't need to be hurt. And I want to make that clear here. When I suggest that there are things that the Trump administration does that I like or that I do not like, or that I think are useful or not useful, it is not because I am suggesting that, well, this makes the Trump administration good or this makes the Trump administration bad. I gladly voted for Trump, now for the third time. In fact, come primary time, although originally in the third primary, I donated, I think like $50 to the DeSantis campaign, I ended up swinging around and voting for Trump. Absolutely. And then, as much as an FCC broadcaster can do, when I was in interviews not on public airwaves where equal time laws are in, I was very openly in favor of the Trump administration, have been since. But when I see the Trump administration doing things like issuing a national emergency as the rule for setting a huge list of tariffs, no. just declaring a national emergency or just declaring you're going to write an executive order 75 days, you're already in serious legal battles that you don't need to be in. And serious legal battles over things where there are activist judges that are trying to limit the actual executive authority prescribed by Article 2 in the United States Constitution. But when you start pushing that line, you already know that Chief Justice Roberts is not exactly a huge fan, and Amy Coney Barrett is really only reliable on executive interpretation on certain prosecutorial discretions of the Constitution on any given day, just kind of depends. I personally would not prefer to see certain things flouted in a manner that makes it easier for opponents to gain ground. And this brings us over to the tariffs themselves. So I know I'm not the first to mention to you today, the stock market had a really, really terrible day. The Dow down over 2,000 points. The market is not enjoying the uncertainty. And there's a lot of tough talk coming from all of these foreign leaders that are suggesting that they're going to stand up to the United States or that they don't like it, or that's not quite true, in that what it appears right now in the research that we lined up before the show, it seems that whether we're talking about Mark Carney, whether we're talking about Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, Emmanuel Macron of France, whether we're talking about Prime Minister Ishiba from Japan, Olaf Scholz and Robert Habeck from Germany, Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Han Duck-soo of South Korea, Ursula von der Leyen of the European Commission, or Anthony Albanese of Australia, all of these world leaders, while they say we don't like these tariffs, are actually suggesting to media in their own country, we're going to try to go to the negotiation table and see what we can do with our trade laws with the United States to lower the trade deficit with the United States so that we can get these tariffs out of here. And you've seen this with Vietnam, and Trump praised this meeting with the leader of Vietnam in trying to lower tariffs. And that is a very good thing in that direction, because what Trump is doing right now is in fact a gamble. If Trump is doing this as a lever for foreign policy, it has the potential, again, other countries have agency, other countries can do good things and bad things. America does not cause other countries to do good things and bad things. Those countries are made up by just as many real people as live here who make good decisions and bad decisions, just like we do here. But if other countries, in fact, do work with the negotiation tactics of the president, this has the potential to be a massive win for the president. If not, and it hurts the economy, Republicans are screwed in the midterm. It is a high-stakes gamble. We're going to be back in just a second for a bit of mail time on the radio side of things. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. When I say that it's a gamble, I think that there's a little bit of heartburn among individuals who are huge Trump supporters. And I understand, because a gamble makes it sound reckless. I don't think so. There are calculated gambles that we take all the time. We don't really call them gambles. They're just risks. Foreign policy is a risk, always. There is no foreign policy, no negotiation, no threat, no intimidation, no deployment of the Navy, nothing that doesn't come with risk, because you can't fully anticipate what your opponent is going to do. One of the reasons that Donald Trump has been so effective in his political career is because, number one, he has a brilliant way of getting under his opposition's skin and making them reveal what it is that they wanted to do all along. The second excellent skill that Trump has is a right hook. Trump's right hook is second to none. He can hit hard, and then he can go gloat about it in front of the entire country while tweeting pictures of the American flag as the ISIS guy that he just shoved the missile up the rear end of is now a smoldering crater. Or getting the president of Colombia to back down, or getting Panama to throw away its Chinese contract to the Belt Road Initiative, or whatever it may be. That is something Trump does better than anybody. It is a gamble in this case because Trump has a personal affection toward tariffs. The issue of this entire argument, I'm so tired of seeing this on the political landscape, is that the straw men come out and they get set up in the field, and that's all we talk about. So just to explain very quickly what I mean by the straw man thing. Right now, there are two groups in the Republican Party, 2.5. I would probably consider myself part of the half who's watching this in macabre fascination. So you have one group that says tariffs are wonderful, they're amazing, they're always fantastic, and we need to stall every trade deficit. They're gonna cure cancer, and there's gonna be rainbows shooting out of our butts because tariffs are just amazing. That's a straw man. That's not how any of that works. On the other side, you have individuals who say tariffs are always bad. We need free trade no matter what. Who cares what the ramifications are? Who cares what jobs leave the country? Who cares what industrial base we have? No tariffs forever. Both of those are extremes, and they strawman the other side. So those who are in favor of tariffs suggest, and I've seen it multiple times, that anyone who isn't fully on board with tariffs for eternity as this ultimate amazing business strategy no one's ever thought of before, that they're actually some type of globalist who's trying to sell jobs everywhere. And the other side is suggesting that populists who are fans of tariffs, they're saying, oh, you're just a knuckle dragging, you're just licking Trump boots, and you don't care about America. You don't even understand math or the economy. Both sides are being ridiculous. It's nonsense. Now, it's way better than what the Democrats are currently doing. Chris Murphy yelling about fascist theories. But on the Republican side of the aisle, yeah, this needs to be hashed out. It is unclear yet whether this is going to work or not. Anyone who tells you they know exactly how this is going to work out, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. They don't know the future on this. When you combine the economy and foreign policy, I hope your crystal ball's shiny. And that's why we've covered it the way we have on the show. All right, be back for a bit of mail time in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, so every show out there, I don't care where it is, they have a little kind of user feedback segment. I do not trust anyone at all to call in live to the show, like at all. Poor Allison, I just don't think that I could do that to her with her hand on the dump button. And there are other shows that they play recordings in, so I know a mail time segment is not something incredibly unique. But what I really do enjoy is seeing some of the questions that are sent in. We try to answer them. I try to be very honest and transparent about these things, because when you're writing shows and you're actually getting this stuff scripted out, you find out that you miss things that people wanted to see talked about. And we've got a little bit of that this evening. This one's from Brian Gelsing. He says, hey, Tony, do you think the education employees let go from the federal government should be offered the choice to teach in a classroom or be fired? They call themselves experts after all. I think that would be really funny. I would say yes, only if it gets to be on camera. I want to see it in person. I really do. I would love to watch some of these people who went to master's college right after undergrad. They went to graduate school and they got their education degrees. Then they went right into working in the federal government. Never seen the inside of a classroom. All they've been fed is this Miguel Cardona hypersensitive restorative justice style silliness. I would love to see them actually in classrooms and find out how horrible children are. Which, by the way, you and I were horrible when we were kids too. That's part of being a teacher, is knowing what people who are unlearned and who are rough around the edges need in order to succeed. Kind of part of it. A lot of the high in the sky pie nonsense over in DC doesn't understand that. So by all means, I'd love to see some of these theories played out in action. The only sad part is those kids would suffer. Well, that's not true. Those kids would enjoy bullying those poor federal workers that got sent to the classroom. This next question's from Phil. And then there's a bunch of numbers after it that I'm not going to read. And he says, hey, I know I saw you praising Senator Jim Banks and his elevator talking about the federal worker. That's worded interestingly. Do you think that Senator Jim Banks is a coward because he said what he said behind a group of security guards? So those aren't security guards, those are his staffers. Every senator has staffers. Senators are more busy than representatives, and the further you go up in the government, the more staffers that you need. And when I'm in public, a lot of times I'll have either a producer with me, and there's nothing about that's the security guard thing as much as those are who are around me, and they help me carry out my work. There are staffers that help senators and representatives carry out their work. That's kind of a useful thing. As to the idea that senators and representatives, while they are busy moving about doing the job that I'm paying them for, so you can yell at them on camera and get your clicks, is not what their time is for. And by the way, I don't think that AOC should have to stop and talk to that one reporter from earlier on in the show either. They're on the job. They're in the halls of Congress. They're moving towards a specific place in time. And then he wasn't hiding behind anyone. He was just walking with his staffers like he does all the time. And for that matter, by the way, if he did walk around, if every senator on the left and right walked around with security guards, good. There are domestic terror incidents. We've had several senators shot or stabbed over the last couple of years. Until y'all can learn to behave, yeah, there should be security guards around anyone that wants security guards. I don't have an issue with that at all. And by the way, as for the the idea that senators need to stop whatever they're doing all the time in order to talk to each and every person that's in front of them is a different kind of entitlement. That's asking for the manager kind of nonsense. So last question that I have to say is one of my favorite questions that I have gotten in the last couple of weeks. They said, hey, I know you can't give financial advice. What do you plan to do right now during the tariffs? And that's from Camise with a Z. What do I plan to do right now? So as a preface, this is not financial advice. This is not. This is what I am personally thinking about doing. When I think that the market looks like it's hit kind of the lowest dip, I'm going to buy the dip. Because either what Trump's policies are doing is going to work and they're going to start to recover as he sticks to it. That happens if Republicans actually get it together and start passing the tax cuts. Right now, Republicans need to start getting the tax cuts passed through. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on Tuesday because the real shenanigans right now that are afoot are going on over in the House with the House Republicans. But I digress. I'm probably going to buy the dip. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep my eye out for things that have not yet been marked up on the tariff and get those early. Because for lack of whatever you're being told, inflation is going to go up. It's going to go up. And Trump can say, hey, Powell needs to cut inflation or needs to cut the interest rates right now. There's no reason to cut the inflation or the interest rates right now. There's none. Inflation is going to get a little worse. Money's going to buy a little bit less. And right now, that kind of looks like Trump's strategy and kind of negotiating payments on the national debt, or at least part of it. And so I'm probably going to try to get some tangible goods in my hands right now. I don't mean buying up 800 cases of toilet paper. It's more of a gradual thing. Don't run out and do drastic things. It's like when you're at the store and you see something on sale and you just grab 2 of them, because it doesn't spoil. That kind of stuff is just good policy. The other thing that I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stay on top of the news and expand what I see as economic indicators so that when I get questions about this kind of stuff, I can actually give you decent answers. Because already I'm starting to hear just the talking points that are on repeat, and I don't care for those. The idea that, well, why can't we charge tariffs? Other countries charge tariffs. If you are making an economic argument that anytime they did it, what about me, is not an argument for something. You should be making positive arguments about why you should be doing something, not, well, they're mean, is not an argument. It's not how that works. So I'm seeing talking points on that side. I'm also hearing like that, well, these Trump people are just bootlickers who don't know anything, and we should have been nicer to the Trump administration officials in the first term, which is a wild take I've seen today. No. Actually read past the stuff. You don't have to take everything you see at face value. That doesn't mean anybody's bad. That doesn't mean anybody's great. It's totally fine to actually take this a step at a time. The calling everyone stupid and evil is how the Democrats got exactly to where they are right away. I'm not interested in that. I think that the best way forward for the Republican Party is to bring in the new union voter bloc and to bring in the corporatist and the establishment crew and to bring in the Bushians, who I usually like the least, to bring in the traditional conservatives and the libertarians, and actually hash this out and come up with policy that works. You say, well, that's never going to happen. All right, well, I'm going to pursue it anyway, because I see that as more effective so that I can recommend things that are useful to you guys when I'm on the air with y'all than telling you that, everything is fine or everything is terrible and I don't care what I see. I'm going to put the horse blinders on and I'm just going to blindly walk off every cliff into every brick wall or imagine that the mud I'm standing in is solid gold. So with that said, I hope that you take my best advice here. Have a relaxing weekend. Shut the TV off. It ain't going nowhere. We'll see you on Tuesday. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Take care.